This is KJCR at JimmyChurchRadio.com.
On the Dark Matter Radio Network. Hey, this is Alan Johannes from the Vultures and Queens of the Stone Age. You're listening to JimmyChurchRadio.com. Rock on.
Ready. We got him. Let's go. All right, welcome back. Let's get this one cracking. This is Fade to Black. Only on the Dark Matter Radio Network. Bespoke radio for the masses. Shoot me an email right now to Jimmy at JimmyChurchRadio.com. Got anything for Eric? I'll try to squeeze it in there. Follow us on Twitter at JChurchRadio. Tweet deck, as always, blowing up. It's good. Special Friday show. Wow, I'm excited. Man, my heart's kind of pumping. I gotta relax. Oh, man. All right. Erich Von Daniken was educated at the College St. Michael in Freiburg, where he already, as a student, he occupied his time with the study of the ancient holy writings. While managing director of a Swiss five-star hotel, he wrote his first book called Chariots of the Gods, Change the World, which was an immediate bestseller in the United States, Germany, and later in 38 other countries. In the United States, Erich Von Daniken won instant fame as a result of the television special In Search of Ancient Astronauts, based upon his first book. In 1993, the German television station Sat.1 started a 25-part TV series with and by Erich Von Daniken entitled Pathways of the Gods. In 1996, the American TV company ABC produced a one-hour special filmed all over the world entitled Chariots of the Gods, The Mysteries Continue. This film was broadcast on ABC Network on September 26, 1996. In 1997, ABC produced another documentary with Von Daniken, seen on the Discovery Channel. And then in Germany, the biggest TV network, RTL, showed the film on November 26, 1996. 7.7 million viewers in Germany alone watched the program. Today, Erich Von Daniken continues his filming with ABC and RTL. I would like to welcome to the program, very humbly, live from Switzerland, Mr. Erich Von Daniken. Eric, are you with us, sir?
Of course I'm with you. I'm sitting in Switzerland, in the Swiss mountains, and at the moment it's cold and frozen here. Doesn't look like summer.
Does the snow ever go away in Switzerland?
Not at the Alps, which is higher than 3,000 meters. There are the glaciers. They are still there.
It just do you ever put on shorts? You don't, do you? It's
Oh yes, we do when we have a real summer. But the last summer and this summer, at least until today, is not a real summer. It's cold.
So much for global warming, as they say, right?
Yeah, really.
Okay. Now, a couple of things, and again, we were talking before the show. This is just a free-form conversation between friends, and wherever we start and wherever we finish is what we do. So, are you ready to go?
Yes, I'm ready to go.
Are you surprised about the fascination with society today and the ancient alien phenomenon? When your book first was introduced first published in 1968, it took the world by storm, and it hasn't really stopped, has it?
No, it never stopped, because there are always new information coming. You see always new temples somewhere in the desert or in the jungle are discovered. Always new old writings are translated. So it's a never-ending story. Each month, practically, new informations land on my desk.
Do you think the internet has a lot to do with that too, where everybody can go and study and research and find out fascinating things on their own?
Well, definitely yes, because the communication is much easier now with the internet than it was before. But on the other side, there is a certain danger, because as it was in the newspapers in earlier days, it's with the internet. Not only the truths are in the internet, sometimes also lies.
Oh, absolutely. And when you just touched upon it, when your book came out, you chose to, right after the book, put out the fabulous movie, Chariots of the Gods. And that was the only thing that you could do then. And its popularity, I can't imagine how long that movie was in the theaters, but it was a long, long time.
Yeah, true. And in the meantime, we have the television. As you mentioned, just we have this fantastic series, Ancient Aliens, from the History Channel, and I'm very happy about this.
Yeah, and with Ancient Aliens, the first season, I couldn't believe what I was seeing on TV. It was just like, finally, mainstream media is paying attention to this. But that series, which is now in its 7th season, soon to be 8 or 9, it's like #1 right now on cable. And are you surprised with that success? Because it is huge.
Well, I am surprised that it happens worldwide, except in the German world. You see, Ancient Aliens, I have some friends in South America. I have some friends in Singapore. They call me and they say, Erich, we are just looking to Ancient Aliens. But here in the German-speaking world, you cannot see it, except if you look at it through Google. Then it works. And I'm absolutely surprised, and I'm happy about it.
Why is that? Why wouldn't it be in Germany or Switzerland?
You see, here we have a special society. From the scientific community, they always want to be reasonable, which I understand. A scientist has to be reasonable. And for them, it's still unreasonable that extraterrestrials should be here thousands of years ago. For them, it makes no sense that some extraterrestrials had the possibility to travel the distances from star to star. For them, it makes no sense that extraterrestrials may have looked similar than humans. So for the people who want to be serious, for the people who want to be reasonable, it makes not much sense. And there is a lake in discussion. Here in the German-speaking world, we are really different than the Americans. The Americans are definitely much opener to all these things. In America, you can discuss all these things. You can be pro or you can be against. It doesn't matter. But here they don't even start a discussion, at least not in TV.
That that must really frustrate you, because hearing that, it just doesn't make sense to me. Part of science is discovery, and you have to question things to go and prove them. And it's kind of backwards, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. That's the way it should be here, but in practice, it's not so. You see, a few weeks ago, I just had some speeches in Czechoslovakia, so in Czechia and Slovakia, and there we were at some universities. Or in the United States, sometimes I'm talking in universities. While in Germany, you never talk in universities. You always talk in some bookstores or city halls or something like this. The university, it's just that they think, now this is unreasonable. We cannot discuss a thing like Erich Von Daniken's idea in public.
Well,
this will change, of course. It's a question of time.
Well, it's the same thing with Egypt, too. You know, the Egyptologists over there and anybody that has graduated from the university cannot step outside of what is taught in the textbooks. And as soon as somebody suggests anything strange about Egypt, whoop, they're crazy. They're nutty, and they don't want to change at all. It doesn't matter if it's dates. It doesn't matter about the construction of the pyramids or anything. As soon as you question Egypt at all, you're completely shut down and ignored.
at least by the so-called Egyptologists. You see, here is a story. Some thousands of years ago, it's about 2,400 years back from now on, the Greek historian Herodotus was in Egypt, and he has written 2 books about Egypt. And in his second book, he says that under the Great Pyramid, there is a lake, so a sea, and in this lake, there is a sarcophagus covered by the water, by absolutely clear water. And Herodotus says he was there himself. Now, Egyptologists never took Herodotus for true. They said this must be a mistake or a fantasy or whatever. It is impossible that under the Great Pyramid there is a lake. But in the meantime, this lake was discovered. I was there. I made photographs. In the clear water, there is, in fact, a sarcophagus. Now, in public, you hear nothing about it, about this discovery. You never hear that the old Herodotus was right and that our Egyptologists were wrong. The same figure, Herodotus, in his second book of history, he says he was in He was in Theban. Theban is today's Luxor on the Nile. And there the priest showed him 241 statues, one statue next to the other. And the high priest gave a short explanation to every statue. So he said the names of when he was living, etc. And at the end, the high priest said, these 241 statues represent 11,340 years. At that time, the gods from the sky were among the humans. Since that time, they have never come back. Now, Egypt, for Egyptologists, the history of Egypt begins about 3000 BC. So Herodot's figure of 11,400 years makes no sense to Egyptologists. But I'm afraid, I guess that the old historian Herodotus was right and that we are wrong.
Well, exactly. And with Göbekli Tepe, and you touched on the magic number there. I mean, it's always 3000 BC, 3000 BC. That's the start of everything, 3000 BC. When we've discovered Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, which clearly is carbon dated at possibly even 14,000 years ago. And so that fills this gap. And nobody wants to change yet. I just don't know. What more proof do they need, Erich?
Well, I really don't know. It all has to do with our ideology. You see, we have this fantastic Darwin's theory of evolution. And definitely Darwin was right. There is evolution, no doubt of this. But according to Darwin's theory of evolution, there is no higher society, no higher culture, let's say 14,000 years ago. That makes no sense because our human way, we developed slowly from the Stone Age people. We had the bears, we had the arrows, we had to chisel stones, etc. We were cavemen. So slowly we evolved to our stage which we have today. So a civilization 14,000 years ago who had writing, who moved stone block, doesn't fit into this theory. That's why nobody talks about it in public.
It seems to me, and you have certainly proven this, but civilizations have probably come and gone dozens of times. This 10,000 years ago ice age, and they don't want to talk about it at all if it's before 10,000 years, is crazy talk. You know?
You see, I just writing on a book again, and I remember we had this atomic bomb, this blast in the Second World War in 1945 in Hiroshima. So this terrible atomic bomb, and 80,000 people were killed, etc. But the same story you find in the 5th book of the Mahabharata. The Mahabharata is an old Indian story, at least 5,000 years ago. And there you find that one of the gods, his name was Gurkha, he destroyed 3 cities with a bomb coming out of the firmament. That city was burned down immediately, within seconds. Thousands and 10,000 of people burned down, died. And those who were far away, they still, the unburned children in the womb of the woman were died. So All this happened before, but nobody takes care of it.
When they, when they come to you and they say, if you know what I mean, where is the proof? What's the one thing that you would like to put on the table and say, aha, right here, it's this?
You see, I have an archive here in my office with about 200,000 pictures. All these 200,000 pictures in the meantime are digitalized in the computer. So I show to these criticism, I show them some of the best pictures. For example, the tombstone of Palenque. The tombstone of Palenque is known in the meantime because Ancient Alien shows it. Palenque is a city of the Maya culture. And Palenque, there is one of the temple called the Temple of Inscription. And in 1952, Professor Alberto Ruz, a Mexican archaeologist, discovered under this Temple of Inscription a tomb. The tomb was covered with a large stone. I mean large because it's 3 meter 80 long, 2 meter 20 large. One stone block, fantastic. And on this stone block, chiseled out, you see a figure bending forward almost like a racing motorcyclist. He uses his 2 hands to manipulate some control. He is sitting on a chair. The heel of his left foot is on some kind of pedal. And outside, he is sitting in a kind of vehicle. Outside, you see a linking flame coming out. So this is very, very impressive. Now, since the discovery in 1952, archaeologists had all kinds of explanations, reasonable explanations, of course. They said this figure represents Pacal. Pacal was one of the Maya leaders of the city of Palenque. It represents Pacal, and Pacal is falling into the open mouth of a monster. So he's dying, and he will be resurrected at one day. Now the newest translation from the Maya specialists, they say the contrary. Now Pacal is not falling into the open mouth of a monster. Pacal is starting from the earth outside to the universe. So the explanation has changed. Now when I have critics here, I show them this picture and I give them the old explanations. I explain the changing of the explanations until today. So step by step we came forward. Or I show them the old Indian literature. Or I show them a book of Enoch. There are English and German translations of Enoch. And all these things, the critics have never heard of it. Then they accept that we have something to say. They accept that we are not just idiots and fantasies. We have some old writings and we have some pictures to show. We can prove that the so-called gods were represented in stones, in sculptures, in temples, and in so many times the so-called gods, they came down from the sky in flying chariots, all this. So slowly, when the critics see these proofs, they become quiet. And that's what we need to do. I do it practically every week.
This is Fade to Black on the Dark Matter Radio Network. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Eric, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, I want to know what went through your mind the first time you flew over Nazca. All right? Okay, we'll be back right after this. Stay with us, everybody. Friday night with Erich Von Daniken. I'll be back right after this. Shoot me an email to jimmy@jimmychurchradio.com. Follow us on Twitter @JChurchRadio, hashtag DMRadioNet. Get in there with all the other Fadernauts. Have a conversation. Special Friday night show right here on the Dark Matter Radio Network. Live from Switzerland, Erich Von Daniken. I'll be back right after this. Don't touch that mouse.
Way out here, we listen to Jimmy Church on the Dark Matter Radio Network.
Dark Matter.
Dark Matter. Dark Matter. Dark Matter. Dark Matter.
You're listening to Fade to Black on the Dark Matter Radio Network.
¿Qué tal, mis amigos? Yo soy Mario Carson, el tiburón, y los invito para que escuchen a mi buen amigo Jimmy Church Radio. ¡Claro que sí! Oi, oi, I'm Reese Evans. You're listening to Jimmy Church. This is Revolution. The revolution will not be televised. The revolution is on radio. Ciao.
This is Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church, on the Dark Matter Radio Network. Shoot me an email to jimmy@jimmychurchradio.com. You got anything for Mr. Von Daniken? Follow us on Twitter @JChurchRadio, #DMRadioNet. Eric, indulge me for a second. I had mentioned before the break that when it comes to Chariots of the Gods and the original movie back then, one of the most shocking things presented, there was dozens of things, but for most of the world, nobody had ever heard of Nazca or that something like this could even exist. And it seems like even though you didn't discover it, you certainly introduced it to the world. And I couldn't believe what I was seeing then. When you first flew over and snapped those famous pictures, what was going through your mind?
You see, it was in November 1964. I had a Peruvian friend who was studying with me in Switzerland in high school, and he invited me to visit him in Peru. So they were practically rich parents. And one day he told me that there is a strange desert in the south of Lima, about 500 kilometers south of Lima, and in the desert there are some lines. He didn't knew more, and I didn't knew nothing about it. So we went down by the car, and I was standing on this desert, and I saw some of the lines, because you see only very, very small part of the lines when you are on the ground. You have to stand directly upon one line. So the next 2 days, we organized a flight. It was only possible to the army, to the Air Force, the Peruvian Air Force. But because the father was rich, so there was no problem. Then we could fly over this Nazca. And I saw these gigantic lines. They start abruptly, they end abruptly. Seen from the air, you have the impression to looking down at an old airport. Of course, it's not an airport, but it looks like an airport from the air. And in the midst of these lines, you see big figures of spiders, of monkeys, of all kinds of things, but they all look upwards to the sky. Even on some top of some mountains, you find some big figures engraved, which you can see only from the air. When you are down in the desert, you can look up at the mountain, you see nothing. So I was the first one who brought this to public with my book, Chariots of the Gods, and also in 1968 with the movie Chariots of the Gods. There was an old lady, a German lady working there, Miss Maria Reiche, and she was studying Nazca. She was absolutely a brilliant scientist, but she was not an archaeologist. Her profession was geology and measurement in geology. She had all kinds of ideas what this could be. And by the end, when she was an old lady, she said, I spent my life to solve this mystery, but I could not solve the mystery. I still don't know what is true.
What did the locals know? Did they know that there was monkeys and spiders, or did they just? What were the rumors going around, or were they just lines in the desert?
There were just lines in the desert and some figures, and the locals did not knew much about it. It was a pure coincidence in the 40s. I don't remember exactly which year, when an American professor of geology was flying over Nazca. And the reason why he was flying was not the lines. He didn't know nothing about the lines. The reason was he was looking for water under the earth, some channels or some under earth water. And then he found these lines. And later, The German geologist, Mrs. Maria Reiche, came to Peru. She knew nothing about these lines either. But by coincidence, she came together with this American...
We were losing Eric. Now we lost him. Okay, all right. I'm going to reset. This is Fade to Black on the Dark Matter Radio Network. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. This is the Friday edition with Erich Von Daniken. We are live from Switzerland. You know technical stuff. We're resetting right now. I'll be back right after this. Shoot us an email to jimmy@jimmychurchradio.com. Follow us on Twitter. It's heating up. Tweet that @JChurchRadio. Hashtag DMRadioNet. I'll be back right after this. Stay with us.
Hi everybody, this is Rob Halford, the Metal God on JimmyChurchRadio.com.
What's up? My name's Brian Taylor, Ninja Badass Extraordinaire, and this is JimmyChurchRadio.com. JJCR in your face. JimmyChurchRadio.com
On the Dark Matter Radio Network.
Okay, welcome back. Fade to Black on a Friday. Live from Switzerland, Erich Von Daniken. This is Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Shoot us an email to jimmy@jimmychurchradio.com. Follow us on Twitter, @JChurchRadio. Hashtag DMRadioNet. Go join all the other Fadernauts. Okay, Eric, have you witnessed anything extraordinary in the sky yourself?
No, unfortunately, no. I never had the chance to see a UFO. I would love to. I never saw a UFO. Of course, I had some wonderful dreams. So spiritual people or esoteric people would say I had some, spiritual contact with them. But in practice, in my life, I never saw a UFO.
What about your family growing up? What was the feeling back then? We're talking many years ago, but was your family open-minded to?
Oh yes,
to the paranormal?
You see, as I said before, I was educated as a strict Catholic, and my father was a strict Catholic. And when he heard about this story, and also my mother, they asked me, "But Eric, do you still believe in God, or do you become now an atheist?" And I could absolutely convince them that God is bigger and bigger than ever. You never lose God when you deal with extraterrestrials. So they were very helpful. But my father died early. Shortly after Chariots of the Gods was on the market in 1968, he died. Not because of the trouble with me. No, he was very happy.
Well, he didn't get to see it published in like 100 million languages. He didn't.
Absolutely nothing.
That's too bad. The modern ways of looking at things, and I'm talking about Hollywood, when you have like Prometheus and Stargate and some of these other huge blockbusters. They all kind of used you for a source, indirectly or directly. How does that make you feel?
I'm happy about it. Of course, I love all these films as long as they are not completely nonsense. As long as they make sense, there is a reason and even science behind it. I love all these movies. I love these blockbusters because it brings the thing into discussion. More and more people start to ask, are we alone? Is something out there? Is it possible that we were with it, etc.? And this is very important because the society is changing. It's changing always, from Stone Age to the Middle Age. Now we are changing again. It's a new paradigm coming up. So I'm very happy about these movies.
Do they ever consult you? Do you ever get a phone call and they want to ask you questions?
In some case, yes. You know, when Roland Emmerich had his first movie, Stargate, then we had a telephone conversation. And I said, you read Erich Von Daniken very well. And he said, yes, I accept. I read all your books. So I was happy about it. And now with ancient aliens, of course, I'm a consultant. They ask me all the time, and they make interviews with me.
This may seem strange, but this is how my mind works. Have you ever had anybody from either your government or maybe the United States, but mention to you off the record that you are right, that you're onto something?
Well, of course. There are some scientific books on the market in the meantime which are written by scientists from different branches. For example, in New York, there's a professor in philosophy. His name is Professor Dr. Louis Navia. He has published book from the philosophical point of view, and he comes to the same conclusion. Or we have anthropologists like Peter Horn, who have come to the same conclusion now. Something is wrong in our evolution. There are more and more. And here, even as I said in the beginning, the scientific community is not accepting what I'm doing. But many scientists are very, very proud and happy when we are in discussion. And these are fair discussion and open discussions. You see, in Switzerland, we have a newspaper which is called Blick. Blick is the biggest newspaper. And since 3 years, Erich Von Daniken writes a column every 3 weeks, since 3 years in Blick, about extraterrestrials. And it has a big audience. So slowly, something is changing.
Well, I totally agree. And I think now that I want to say population, everybody here, the people that live on Earth, I think that we're getting a little smarter. And the internet certainly helps that, and television and mass media. But now I think the only sensible conclusion is that, yes, we were visited, that B, we are being visited now, and we have the evidence. We feel good about this. It only makes sense that we're not alone in this universe. And I think that they're frustrated with the denial from officials, from both academia and governments themselves.
You see, concerning the past, thousands of years, I can clearly prove my case. Of course, we have never found an extraterrestrial object. I was never able to present to the scientific community some objects which is thousands of years ago, which the extraterrestrials left on the planet. But we can prove by indication. And indications, if you have a lot of them, are so strong that we would win every court case with our indications. So concerning the past, I can clearly prove we were visited by extraterrestrials. And this goes on because when these visitors left our planet, they promised to our forefathers, we will return. And this promise of returning was practiced in every old culture. It doesn't matter if you take the Maya, if you take the Aztecs, if you take the Egyptians, it doesn't matter what culture in the past, they all were expecting some gods to return. And the same belief we have in our today's religion. Again, I'm educated as a Christian. We believe that Jesus one day will return. But the Muslim society believes that their Mahdi will return. The Buddhist religion, they wait the return of their Buddha. The great Jewish community is waiting since more than 5,700 years for the returning of their Messiah. So not only the cultures which died out had this expectation, also our today's religion. Now, honestly, not every religion can be right. Some of them must be wrong. And I'm afraid there is no Messiah or no Buddha or no Jesus or no Mahdi to return, simply extraterrestrials. And it makes sense to be prepared for such an event.
Do you think Sitchin was right?
Oh, yes, in many cases. We know each other very, very good. I was not a friend of his 12th planet, because the 12th planet, surrounding our sun in 3,600 years, our astronomers should know this, because we can measure a planet. Even if you don't see it, you can measure it. But I was a very fan of Zachariah Sitchin, with all his translations from the Sumerian cuneiforms, and what he came out with, absolutely great.
Can you read Sumerian?
No, not at all. You see, In Germany, we have a professor in Sumerology. His name is Dr. Burghardt. And this Dr. Burghardt now for the first time has translated old Sumerian cuneiform writings with modern sense. And I have his manuscript on my desk. I had him on the phone 2 or 3 times. He's an old man in the meantime. And he said, Erich, now it makes sense. In the past, our translations, always we had to find for religious or psychological interpretations. That was wrong. Now it makes sense. There was a space station around the air. There were smaller vehicles going up to the space station, coming down. The gods were extraterrestrial. And this you can prove in the meantime by new translations. So the world changes.
That's interesting. Is there any way to look at this online and to investigate this further? I would like to look into this myself.
Yeah, but the book exists only in German language at the moment.
Well, you're going to have to translate for me.
Oh, God. It's really so complicated. You cannot translate it. Somebody, a big American publisher has to do this.
One of the things that I find frustrating with Sitchin is his detractors and the skeptics. And in that, it's very, very easy to say, no, it doesn't exist. When you're dealing with something that you don't have any concrete proof. I mean, that's the easiest thing to do is to be a critic or a debunker. And with Sitchin, I just feel like he was out there on his own, and he couldn't get anybody to stand up and support him from academia.
Because they are all afraid. They are all afraid to lose their reputation. As we said in the beginning, all scientists want to be reasonable. And what we do for them is still unreasonable. Soon as scientists look into the matter, seriously, they all change their mind. But they are afraid to look into the matter. They don't see the old books, the old texts. They still have the old tunnel view. But again, this will change, be sure. Our form of thinking will change. You see, in the past, when we have an old text, we had a word like heaven. So Abraham was taken into the heaven. But I'm sorry, in the heaven there was a war. Now, I'm educated as a Catholic. When I was a boy, they told me, when you are nice in your life, when you are not cheating other people's, lying other people's, when you work, you are not the murderer, etc. When you die, you come to heaven. Heaven is the place of absolute happiness. In heaven, you are together near God, near the great Almighty God. But I'm sorry, in the same heaven, there was a war, even in the Christian Jewish tradition. You remember the story of Lucifer? Lucifer was an archangel in heaven. And one day, Lucifer came to the throne of the Almighty God and said, we don't serve you anymore. And the Almighty God sent out his archangel Michael to put Lucifer and his disciples out of heaven. So, when heaven is the place of absolute happiness, because you are united with God, you cannot have war at the same time. Meaning war or opposition means you are not happy. So we should change words like heaven into space, new tradition. Or we have words like angel. What is an angel? An angel is a messenger coming down from the sky to teach the humans. But messengers, angels, had sex with humans, definitely. So change the word angel into extraterrestrial. Now you have changed 2 words, heaven into space, angels into extraterrestrial. An archangel is the leader of a group of extraterrestrials. You only have to change about 10 words with modern sense, and the old texts become brand new meaning, interpretation, and that's what we need, what we do.
That would be a best-selling book. The Bible Part 2. Think about that for a second. I mean, that would be a game changer, and you would certainly have a target on your back at that point. Let's take another break.
Yes.
I've got a couple other things I want to get out there, and when we come back, this is Fade to Black on the Dark Matter Radio Network. When we come back, I'm going to ask Erich how he investigates and where does he get his information from. And for all of us out there, that's the one question I think that needs to be answered. This is Fade to Black on the Dark Matter Radio Network. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. We are live from Switzerland with Erich Von Daniken. We'll be back right after this. Stay with us, Eric.
And I listen to JimmyChurchRadio.com.
Jimmy Church. My name is Alan, and I listen to JimmyChurchRadio.com.
He's always giving it to you straight.
JimmyChurchRadio.com.
On the Dark Matter Radio Network.
Hi, this is Rob Reiner from Anvil, and you're listening to JimmyChurchRadio.com.
What's up? I'm Chris.
What up? This is Kyle Massey, and you're listening to Jimmy Church Radio, The Revolution.
All right, this is Fade to Black on the Dark Matter Radio Network, the Friday edition. I am your host, Jimmy Church. We are on the Dark Matter Radio Network live from Switzerland, Erich Von Daniken. Eric, I said before the break, the big question is, how do you investigate and where do you get your information from? Where do you start?
Well, the beginning is always archaeological discoveries. I read every archaeological discovery, every book which I can find. Now, it depends on the dating. It's an old temple or a new temple. When it's new temple, I'm not interested. With new, I mean 3,000 years. So I'm looking for discoveries of temples and houses and whatever, which are older than 3,000 years. Then I go there. Of course, I know the archaeological meaning. I read the archaeological book, but I have another meaning, another sensory. I say, if it has to do something with religion at that time, 3,000 more years in the back, then we must find some religious sculptures, some paintings. They must have showed their gods, their belief. So I go there to all these places, and I look to these ruins with my eyes. And my eyes have different view than the archaeologist has it too. Now, in the meantime, because my books are worldwide, in 32 languages, I receive incredible information from my readers. Some lady writes me out of New Zealand, Mr. Von Daniken, you have published some Stone Age paintings in a cave somewhere, but don't you know something about our Stone Age paintings? They are much more impressive. So I ask for scientific literature, which archaeologist has published something about it. Then we get in contact, and soon as I find that could be interesting, then I fly there. In all my books, I write about nothing which I have not seen and touched. I was always there. That's why I have 200,000 pictures in my archive.
Can you give me one example? I'm excited about this. Can you give me one example of somebody that tipped you off and you went, wow, I didn't know about this, and it turned out to be something sensational? Can you give me an example of that?
Yes. Some years ago, I had a speech in University of Bombay, India. In the meantime, it's not anymore Bombay, they're saying Mumbai. And I had a speech at the university. And after the speech, I was attacked by a professor in Sanskrit. His name was Professor Dr. Dilip Kanjilal. He was a small man, but he was very brilliant in his brain. And he said, Eric, you know nothing about our Indian mythology. But you say you just scratch on the surface. This goes all much deeper, and you have to understand our Hindu religion, etc. So we had discussions. He was against me. And then he said during the discussion, on the Indian temples, in the cellars of the Indian temples, there are thousands of manuscripts which nobody translated. Manuscripts from Sanskrit and Christian. So I said to the professor, why don't you translate it? You are able to do it. He says, well, it's a question of money. I need time. I need 1 or 2 years. I asked him, what's the price? I mean, if you take 1 year off at your university, can I pay this? Of course I could pay it. It was about $20,000, which was nothing at that time. So he made free from his university, and he started to translate old Indian texts from Sanskrit into English. And the result was a book, Flying Machines in Ancient India. So the professor completely changed his mind, and it helped me, of course, to support my case.
That's an incredible story. And the reason why I'm asking is the discovery that we have just made off of Malibu, you and I were just talking about that off air, was sent to us from one of our listeners. And he sent me an image, and he said, check this out. Something strange is off of the coast of Malibu. And we went and investigated and made the discovery. And if that hadn't have happened, and I encourage everybody listening to you and I right now, if you know of something interesting, don't sit on it. Don't ignore it, expose it, and get it out there to guys like you and myself where we can, and we have the resources to go and investigate. Because without that, you know, there's so many eyes and ears out there in the world, and people are discovering things all the time. And if you find something, let somebody know about it, because if you don't make the move, it could potentially just sit there like India.
Yeah, exactly. That's why we in Germany, we have our organization. You see, it was called Ancient Astronaut Society. In the meantime, it's called Society for Investigation in Archaeology and Aeronautics, and SETI. SETI means Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence. And in the United States, you have a similar organization, which is led by Giorgio Tuskalos. You know, Giorgio from Ancient Aliens. Giorgio has his legendary Time magazine on the market. There we always publish every 2 months the newest discovery and bring it into open discussion.
It has to be that way, and the more that you discuss, and the more that I discuss in programs like this, it gets out there. And that's one thing I wanted to touch upon. With all of your success, because you've had an immense amount of success, do you think that you have changed things for us? In other words, is there an era before Erich Von Daniken and then the era after? Can you feel it?
Of course, there is a changing. You see, even before Erich Von Daniken, before 1968, there were science fiction writers, brilliant men, who came up with the idea that we visit another planet and the natives would look at us as a form of gods. So this basic idea was not an invention of Erich Von Daniken. That existed in science fiction literature. But I was practically the first who came out and took it serious. I said, now I want to find proof in temples, in sculptures, in holy writings, etc. And that was the success of Chariots of the Gods. By the way, next month, somewhere in the 5th or 6th August, I am in the United States, and I have not only a speech, I also have a so-called workshop, where for 5 or 6 hours I show to the listeners the most incredible things.
Yeah, that's Contact in the Desert, and we will be there, by the way. We will.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah, we are. We'll be broadcasting live August 8th. That's a Friday night. And I'm excited to actually meet you in person. And I can't. I talk about it on the show every night about Contact in the Desert and the collection of researchers that is there. Not only Giorgio, but yourself and Nick Pope and Richard Dolan. The list goes on and on and on. But that is a huge collection of minds all at the same place at the same time. I encourage everybody to take the time and come out and hang out with all of us. And with that, I'm going to take one more quick break. We'll come back and we'll wrap up with Erich Von Daniken live from Switzerland. This is Fade to Black on the Dark Matter Radio Network. Stay with us, everybody. Shoot us an email to jimmy@jimmychurchradio.com and follow us on Twitter @JChurchRadio, #DMRadioNet. Stay with us, Eric. We'll wrap this up when we come back.
Despite popular opinion, reading a book will not make you smarter.
But listening to Jimmy Church will.
He's always giving it to you straight.
JimmyChurchRadio.com
on the Dark Matter Radio Network.
This is Kristen, Erica, Brittany, Gabby, and you're listening to JimmyChurchRadio.com.
This is KJCR at JimmyChurchRadio.com
on the Dark Matter Radio
Network. All right, everybody, welcome back. Fade to Black on a Friday. Live from Switzerland, Erich Von Daniken. This is Fade to Black on the Dark Matter Radio Network. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Okay, we got that out of the way, Eric. You were on the break. You asked me about Art Bell. What was the question?
Yes. No, really. I didn't know. I'm wondering, because I was an Art Bell show 2 or 3 times in the past. Is he still alive?
He is doing great. He is
okay. Happy to hear this.
Yes. He is. He's a little younger than you, not much, but he's out in Las Vegas at his home out there, relaxing, and he will be back on the air in July, and his show will follow mine. Originally, I came in to sit in for him while he was on his break, but it looks like he wants the time slot after mine, and he has said so. And so
okay.
we will go back to back. It's like opening for the Beatles. I'm the opening act.
Okay. Whatever. I hear you, and I just realize you are brilliant. You are absolutely perfect. It makes a pleasure. You are well educated, and you studied the subject you are talking about. It's great to talk to you. Thank you.
You have to understand one thing. When I was younger, when Chariots of the Gods came out and the book, I begged my parents to take me to go see that movie, and it changed things. There in life, like you with Nazca and Peru, right, in 1964, there are certain things that happen in your life that change you, and Chariots of the Gods did that for me, and you did it for millions of people, and we certainly have to congratulate you for that. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, now that we got all the pats in the back out of the way, I want to talk to you about your theme park, and what was the motivation for doing that in Switzerland, where everybody is conservative?
You see, I live in a place called Interlaken. Interlaken is in the middle of the mountains, and it is an absolute big tourist place in summer and in winter. So I had the idea to make a theme park here with different pavilions. And in all the pavilions, you should see in a modern sense, for example, Stonehenge. You see Stonehenge as a laser show. It's gigantic. Or you see Nazca. You fly over Nazca. And really not just in a movie, because beneath you have a glass bottom. And you fly really over. You can look down. So all these things in Interlaken. We opened the park a few years ago, and it went very good, but never in winter. In winter, it was lousy. There were practically not much visitors. So they gave up the park in winter, and since 2 years, it's only open in summer. It's in Interlaken, Switzerland, and especially when it's bad weather, like today. Everyone goes to the park. You can stay a whole day with it. It's not annoying. It's fantastic.
How many visitors do you get?
Well, normally about 250,000 a year. Could be more.
Oh, that's huge.
No, it's not so much. Could be more. It depends now, anyhow.
Do you think the visitors that come to the park, are they aware of the ancient alien theory, or do they come there not knowing about it and leaving educated?
Well, it's both. Some of them have no idea. They just come because it's bad weather, and they ask at the hotel reception, what can we do here in the mountains with bad weather? And they tell them, go to the park. And they have no idea what they expect there. And after it, they are completely changed. You see, I made all the texts for the park, and I was very, very careful to always end with question marks. The park is not the park where you have to believe something. It's not something which tell you like a religion. This is the way you have to look at it. No, on the contrary, it all ends with question marks. For example, Nazca, we give shortly every scientific theory, which means a few phrases. Professor X says that, Professor Y says that, Mr. Maria Reiche says that, etc. But it all ends with question marks. So it's a park to be astonished, not the park to believe. And all these people who visit the park who don't know nothing about it, they are absolutely astonished. And the other half are the ones they want to come here because they know this is Erich Von Daniken's park and we want to see these shows.
Do you hang out? Are you at the park every day?
No, not every day. I have every month, always at the first Sunday in the month, I have a speech, an open speech at the park, which, by the way, is free of entry. Don't have to pay for it. So on my speech, normally in the park, there are about 100 to 200 people. But that's in German language. That's a problem.
I was picturing you, at the theme park every day and greeting people, and then you just getting bombed by questions. I mean, all day long. I can only imagine what that would have been like. But yeah, that was the image that I had in my head. Okay. Before I let you go, one last quick question. You are you 80?
Yes, next year. I'm born on April 14th, 1935. So next year, in the year 15, I am 80 years old. But my brain works as if I was young. Nothing has changed in my brain. I'm very happy.
You can tell, too. And
I always say the gods love me.
Well, I can only hope that when I'm 80 that I'll be doing radio still and somebody would be interested in me. But now, at the age of 80, are you still jumping on planes and crawling through caves and researching
still.
and investigating?
Absolutely. I'm still jumping on planes, going into caves and whatever. New discoveries come up, and I'm interested. I go there. I must see it. I must take my own mind. I must smell it. I must feel it. Without this, I would never write about it. And I must know the literature about it. I will know what the archaeological community says to it before I write about it.
I have to ask one question, and I talk about it, it seems like every day on this show. I mention it once. Have you been to Göbekli Tepe?
No, I was not there. But I have very good pictures from one of my friends. One of my close friends, who is working for our organization. I personally was not there.
That's one of the places that I have to get to is Göbekli Tepe for the research that you're doing and all of the theories out there in lost civilizations. This seems to be a game changer, a true key to answering
but you know what I know about it? It's not very big. And there are no hotels around there, so it's not a tourist place.
No, it's
so when you go there, you have probably to sleep in tents, or you make a long car ride, etc. Of course, it's possible, but it's not very big. The whole archaeological site.
Yeah, it's not, but the age of it, I talk about it every day on this show, and I need everybody to, just like you, I need everybody to understand exactly the significance of something like Göbekli Tepe. And if there is a Göbekli Tepe, then there are many more out there just waiting to be discovered.
That's exactly the point. We will discover more and more, and new questions come up, and we will learn much more about our past and our future.
Do you have an expedition planned?
No, not at the moment. I'm going to Colombia next time. There in Colombia, new subterranean places have been discovered, and I will go there in September.
So when you get back from Colombia, I would like to invite you back on the show and tell us about what you find.
Okay, it's a great pleasure for me. Thank you. We will meet anyhow in August somewhere.
Yes, we will have a cigarette and hang out in Joshua Tree.
Are you still a smoker?
I'm ashamed.
Me too.
Well, that's where this voice comes from. So there you go.
Exactly.
Erich Von Daniken, thank you very so much, sir. It was a great pleasure, and I will see you in about 1 month.
Okay.
Have a
Will be great. Thank you for your questions. It was a pleasure for me to be on your show.
I'll talk to you soon. Thank you, sir.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Ciao.
Erich Von Daniken. Thank you, sir. Live from Switzerland. Sounded pretty good, too. You wouldn't think that he was, 9,000 miles away. And we'll be seeing Eric in about a month at Contact in the Desert. Wow. Sensational. All right. Now, coming up next, I'm going to talk to you about the Dyatlov Pass incident. We've got some graphics. I have some images. I interviewed Cousin Andre, who was here this week from Russia. And he came into the studio here and sat down with us for a minute. And we shot some video. It's pretty cool. And we'll be getting that out very soon. But these are some audio excerpts of the session that I did with Andre. Not only that, but we went and did a special report, got a bunch of information together, stuff that we had to translate from Russian into English, and you're just not going to hear this anywhere else. And we think we've uncovered some new evidence. Is it the end all? We don't know yet. This is Fade to Black on the Dark Matter Radio Network. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. We'll be back right after this. Stay with us.
Hey, what up, y'all? It's your girl Vivica Fox here, and you are listening to my boy, Jimmy Church, on JimmyChurchRadio.com.
Despite popular opinion, reading a book will not make you smarter.